streets are playing with my mind. I'm losing everything in sight.
Hello everyone, you're very welcome to the channel. How are you all doing today? So yesterday afternoon we had the Qatar Grand Prix, and it was a big win for Lewis Hamilton and takes him one step closer to potentially retaining the championship, and I really want to talk about that today. So firstly, let me know, what did you think of the race? If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment, let me know. Do you agree with driver of the day, Fernando Alonso? Do you think Hamilton should be driver of the day? Does Verstappen have any chance of winning this championship when you look at the speed that Mercedes seem to have at the moment, and we're going on to what are potentially two Mercedes circuits? Can Hamilton be stopped, or is he this unstoppable juggernaut that's coming along to win the championship at the very final race of the season? I'll tell you what, it's exciting. There's a lot ahead. So very quickly, let's have a look at yesterday's race and how that turned out. So looking at the starting grid, as you can see, we have it here on screen if you're watching on the YouTube channel. If you're listening on our podcast, I'll try my very best to describe what I'm showing on the screen at the moment. So Hamilton was starting in pole position, and then very strangely we had Pierre Gasly lining up alongside him at the front of the grid. A little bit of a surprise for me, and we had Alonso then starting in third place, Norris in fourth, Sainz in fifth, Bottas sixth, Verstappen seventh, Tsunoda 8th, Ocon 9th and Vettel in 10th. So why were Bottas and Verstappen out of position? Well, they actually received a penalty after ignoring double yellow flags during qualifying Q3 session actually on Saturday. Now, I saw the incident. It was actually ironically because of Pierre Gasly. He had a puncture, and he was trying to pull off to one side on the start-finish straight to keep out of the way. There were intermittent yellow flags. We could see them popping up on the screen on the display on the television feed from time to time, but it went green, it went yellow, it went green, it went yellow. So very hard to tell when the yellow flags were. Obviously, the FIA have all of the data here, and they knew exactly what was going on, and they were able to hand out these grid penalties. So yes, it resulted in a 5-place grid penalty for Verstappen and Bottas. Bottas, of course, originally qualified second, and Verstappen then qualified in third place. So yeah, tough going, but the rules are the rules. And actually, it didn't make a whole lot of difference, I would say. Let me put up the final race results as the race went. So we can see here, yes, Hamilton won the race. We all know this at this stage. Verstappen did come in second. So Verstappen made very quick work of making his way through the field. Now I'd say not as quick as Lewis Hamilton did during the Brazilian Grand Prix, but nearly as quick. A very good start actually from Verstappen. He got by quite a few cars, almost up into second place, but Alonso came across the track, and Verstappen had to take some evasive measures there, because the last thing he wanted was to tangle with Verstappen. You can see then that Alonso finished in third place. This was a fantastic result for him. He did get driver of the day as a result of that. I think very, very fair. He had an awesome race, and Perez could only manage fourth place. Alonso made the one-stop strategy work, which was key for him. A lot of cars, you'll see here on the screen, so a lot of cars, including Ocon as well, his teammate, and both of the Ferraris, went for the one-stop strategy. High risk. There were a number of cars that did get punctures. It seemed to be Mercedes-based cars though, so Bottas had a puncture, and as a result he actually had to retire from the race because it looks like he sustained a lot of damage to the bottom of the car. And we had Latifi and Russell also had punctures. So interesting observation there, I guess that's all you could call it. But yeah, looking at Alonso, my heart was in my mouth trying to figure out whether or not he would actually make the end of the race, hoping he would, and he did, of course, and he was up on the podium, and it was all fantastic to see him back there again. Perez came home in 4th, as I said. Ocon then was 5th. Stroll was in 6th, so a nice return to the points for Stroll. He's had some disappointing races recently. Sainz was in 7th. Leclerc was in 8th, so they were very close to each other, both of the Ferraris. Not the greatest race in the world for the Ferraris, but some solid points by comparison to McLaren, who they're fighting in the championship for 3rd at the moment. It was then Norris in the McLaren who came in 9th, and Vettel came in 10th, so a double points finish then for Aston Martin, which was very welcome for them. Gasly, unfortunately, only finished in 11th place despite starting in 2nd, so he was going backwards for the majority of the race, and that was unfortunate. You know, there was no major incident or anything that has happened to him in previous races. This time it just the car was going backwards and they didn't have the speed. Very disappointing as well. Ricciardo finished in 12th outside the points as well, so Noda was in 13th. Raikkonen 14th, Giovinazzi 15th. Schumacher finished in 16th, so he finished ahead of Russell. Russell, of course, did have that puncture towards the end of the race, so that didn't help him. Russell was 17th, Mazepin was 18th, and then both Latifi and Bottas did not finish the race, and both as a direct result from the punctures and the damage that they picked up to their cars as a result of having the delaminated tyre. So, moving on from there, as I said, yes, Alonso was driver of the day. Yeah, I totally agree with this. Maybe not everybody is in agreement with this, but you could see this coming a mile away. He was going to win driver of the day. Let me know in the comments if you think somebody else should have been driver of the day. For me, yeah, Alonso, I won't argue with that. I'll take it. I'll take it quite happily. Alright, so I'm showing the championship standings now. As you can see, this is quite complex, so let me try and explain what's going on here. So I basically put together my Excel spreadsheet and try to add up all the points myself to see where we stand. So it's Verstappen is still leading the championship, and he has a gap now of 8 points back to Hamilton in 2nd place. So there's only 8 points in it. And critically, Verstappen took a fastest lap yesterday, so he got 18 points for 2nd place, and he got 1 additional point for fastest lap. Hamilton, I think, will be a little bit peeved about that, although I don't think fastest lap is going to be a major deciding factor in this championship, and I'll get onto that in a little while. Bottas got no points, as you can see. Perez then came in 4th place, so he retains 4th in the championship, ironically. We had Norris then is next, he's in 5th. Of course, he picked up 2 points yesterday. Leclerc is in 6th. He picked up 4 points yesterday. Okay, Leclerc now is only 1 point behind Norris in the championship, which is amazing. So this really comes down to the wire for the last 2 races. That Sainz sits in 7th place in the championship. Ricciardo sits in 8th, 40 and a half points behind Sainz. We have Gasly in 9th, who is only 7 points behind Ricciardo now, so he has a great opportunity there. Unfortunately, he did not pick up any points yesterday. And then we have Alonso in 10th place in the championship, and he picked up a very nice handful of points yesterday, 16 points. 11th is Ocon, 12th is Vettel, and 13th is Stroll, and there is a gap of 9 points now between Vettel and Stroll, and Ocon is 18 points behind his teammate. So it all means that Max Verstappen is still the championship leader, but for how much longer? Very quickly, have a look at the constructors' standings and how they are right now. So you can see here, once again, 5 points. 5 points now, only between Mercedes and Red Bull. So Mercedes took a grand total of 25 points yesterday, and Red Bull took 30 points from the race and 1 point for the fastest lap, so that's 31 points. So they actually closed the gap ever so slightly on Mercedes. It's down to 5 points, so it's possible we could have a driver winning the championship but their team not winning the Constructors Championship. I think it's actually could be very likely at this stage, but we'll see what happens in the last 2 races. Very important that both Bottas and Perez have good races and back up their teammates and do something for their team. Ferrari are still in 3rd place, McLaren are in 4th place, and it is 39.5 points now between McLaren and Ferrari. So Ferrari seem to have pulled away slightly. With 2 races left, I really can't see McLaren closing that gap. But, we have seen Daniel Ricciardo win a race already this season. So these things can happen. Norris, of course, very close to winning in Russia as well. So maybe McLaren could be kicking themselves a little bit, saying they could be absolutely closer to Ferrari. But that's the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. Now, Alpine are in 5th place. And AlphaTauri are in 6th place, 25 points between them. Hard to see AlphaTauri closing that gap on Alpine at this stage. Alpine have actually looked a little bit stronger towards the end of the season. Aston Martin are in 7th, Williams are in 8th, Alfa Romeo are in 9th, and we have Haas in 10th place, and last place, the only team without points at the moment. So let's talk about championship implications. Firstly, this tweet from the Formula 1 Twitter. So Max can win the title at the next race in Saudi Arabia if he wins with the fastest lap and Lewis is in 6th place. Now this is a long shot. It seems quite unlikely, but it's possible. It's possible. If he wins and Lewis is in 7th, so this is where we disregard the fastest lap, and of course Lewis doesn't get the fastest lap in this case. If he's 2nd with the fastest lap and Lewis is in 10th, or if he is 2nd and Lewis fails to score. So a lot of these assume a really bad race for Lewis Hamilton. I don't think Lewis would be happy with any of this. I don't think this is going to happen in Saudi Arabia. As I said many times, I really hope this championship is not settled on a DNF or some kind of mechanical failure. I think that would be very, very unfair, but it's all ahead. It remains to be seen what will happen. So potentially, yes, we could have a winner of the championship after the next race. It could be Max Verstappen. I think it's a long shot. I don't think he is going to win after the next race. Now, based on what we've seen in Brazil and Qatar and this sudden speed that Mercedes have found, it has left me asking the question, well, what happens if Lewis Hamilton wins the next 2 races? Will he definitely win the championship, or is there an opportunity for Max Verstappen to still win the championship? And actually, it's a very simple answer. Max Verstappen won't win the championship if Lewis Hamilton wins the next 2 races. So you can see I'm displaying on the screen at the moment, if 50 points are allocated to Lewis Hamilton, and we haven't taken into account any fast laps here. I don't think fast laps are going to be a factor, as I said earlier in this broadcast. So 50 points to Lewis Hamilton, it will put him on 393.5 points, and that would give him a gap of 6 points over Verstappen if Verstappen were to finish 2nd in both of those races. So that's an additional 36 points for Verstappen, and so that gap is now 6 points if this were to happen. If Verstappen were to get fastest lap for both of those races, the gap then is 4 points. So that's why I'm saying I don't think fastest lap now at this stage is going to be a major factor in winning this championship. Now, there are lots of different permutations and predictions you can make here. What happens if Bottas gets into the mix? What happens if Perez gets into the mix? And then, of course, all the different technical failures and penalties that could come into play. And my goodness, there is a lot of scope for penalties at the moment. A lot of controversy around the rear wing with Mercedes as well. I'm not really sure what's going to happen there. Red Bull absolutely adamant that it's illegal. I don't know if it is illegal or not. Certainly the FIA haven't been very fast to clamp down on it. So maybe it's just a smart manipulation of the rear wing that falls within a loophole of the regulations. And we've seen Mercedes do that before. Think of the double DRS, for example. And this sort of thing, it's happened in the past. And it will get worked out of the regulations, but probably not this season. So a lot of smoke at the moment, mostly coming from the Red Bull side, but nothing conclusive from the FIA. So we have to assume that this trick of the rear wing will remain for the final 2 races, and certainly with a big long straight coming up in Saudi Arabia, that plays majorly into the hands of Lewis Hamilton. Now, this is Formula 1. Absolutely anything could happen. We've seen very dramatic finishes to the championship in the past, so it probably won't be as simple as Hamilton winning 2 races and Verstappen coming 2nd in 2 races. Of course, if it works out in such a way that Verstappen wins 1 race and Hamilton wins the other, and they come 2nd place then in the respective races, then of course Verstappen wins the championship. So this is only assuming Hamilton wins the next 2 races, then he will be the world championship. But based on the form that we've seen from Hamilton and based on the layout of the upcoming tracks, I think it's very highly likely that barring any technical issues for the Mercedes, that Lewis Hamilton will win the world championship, and that will be title number 8. So I'm not really on the Hamilton side, I'm not on the Verstappen side. I would, just putting it out there, I would like to see Verstappen or somebody different win the championship this year, but as it sits right now, I'm not overly confident that Verstappen can do it, purely based on the form of the Mercedes and the form of Hamilton, and he's been driving very well. It's like he's uber focused on what he needs to do. Anyhow, I think that's the end of my video now. I just have the points tally here, the standings. As you can see, Verstappen still on top for now, but for how much longer? He could lose the lead of the championship in the last race. That would be very, very sour taste indeed. And Mercedes and Red Bull, as I've said, only 5 points between them now in the championship. So this is crazy. The Constructors and the Drivers' Championship, this is crazy how tight it is between both of them. So it's all ahead. Now, let me know in the comments your predictions for the upcoming races. Do you think Lewis Hamilton can win both of the remaining races, or do you think Max Verstappen is going to do something? This is where we will see Super Max come out. He really has to battle very hard here. I'm sure he's well aware, I'm sure Red Bull are well aware that Mercedes are now, no pun intended, in the driver's seat to win this championship if they keep the form they have at the moment. Hopefully nothing sinister comes into play, like teammates taking out other drivers. I don't think that will be a factor. I hope it won't be a factor. I want to see a clean fight to the championship, but I do want it to be dramatic. Anyhow, thank you very much for joining. If you are listening on podcast, add the podcast to your subscription, and if you are watching on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I would really appreciate your support. Trying to grow a Formula 1 fan community here, and of course hit the bell for notifications in the future as well. And I think I can leave it there. So yeah, it's all going down. This championship is going to go to the wire, and I, for one, am really excited about this. I can't hide my excitement about this. Thanks for watching, and I will speak to you really, really soon.